And then a lot of them, I don't get that much further than that. And the reason for that is because I stop when I find something that's a nugget. I'm like, oh, that's a nugget. I don't read the rest of the book. I stop and I say, how do I put that into action right now?
Officially, welcome back to the Life and Business Hack Show. I'm your host, the real Stephen Corcoran here. And man, do I have a doozy for you guys today. I have my very good friend, Erik Hatterscheidt. This guy's a well-known speaker, probably one of the best speakers I've ever heard. I think I've heard at least 1,000 of your talks at this point.
Probably, yeah.
And every time it's so inspirational. This guy is a marketing genius. I wanted to get this guy on the show for the longest time, but he's super busy doing all these summits. He's known very well in the tourism space. Now, I won't dive too much into Erik, but I want everybody to introduce to Erik Hatterscheidt.
Well, thanks, Steve. That was more than generous, because I would definitely not claim to be the best speaker out there, but you know, one does one's best.
Well, you're just so raw and authentic, well spoken too. And I just want to give a little background about you. Why don't you dive into like how you got into kind of the tourism space, a little bit about you, just so the audience kind of knows a little bit.
Yeah, that's one of those things that can turn into a long story. So I'm going to try and keep it short, which is,
yeah, I know. I've heard it so many times, but
so I ended up in the tourism space by birth, I guess you could say, because my family ran a small resort out in BC, and I grew up at that resort. And what I found, like in growing up at that resort, was that I learned that my contributions to the family business really mattered. And in the beginning, when I say that my contributions mattered, the contributions were things like cleaning cabins, chopping wood, putting fence posts in. We had like a little farm there as well. So like taking care of the animals. I was a little goat boy. Yeah, I was basically like a boy version of Heidi, just living out in the mountains out there. And yeah, so I was involved with that. And as I got older, I started to realize that my ability to contribute to that business, it could evolve from just doing the physical labor to actually looking at more strategic things. How do we bring in more guests into this? How do we increase sales and revenue? And so I thought, coming through high school, as a lot of us do, you know what? I have to decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. And at that point, I was really focused on how would I take a small business like this and grow it. And that really factored into me determining to go to university and study marketing, because that seemed like the obvious choice. So I studied marketing at university, and upon graduation, had a call from my parents, and they said, hey, do you want to come back and manage this resort? And I was like, okay, cool. What's the position pay? And they said, nothing, but we want you to come back and help us out.
That's a good salary.
Yeah, it was a really good sell on my parents' end. What they did say, though, that was really enticing to me was that I could come back, and any additional revenues that I made on top of what the resort was already making, because we were basically breaking even at that point in time. So anything I made in addition to that, I could keep a percentage of that revenue for my salary. And I was definitely had too much of an ego back then. And I thought, oh, this will be easy because I just studied marketing at university. I'll come back and I'll market this thing. What happened in reality was I came back and I tried to apply what I'd learned in university, and it completely, absolutely failed. I just fell flat on my face. I was spending more money than we were making with the marketing. And eventually my dad was like, you have to stop. You can't just keep spending money and not go anywhere.
Please stop.
And then there was, the story goes on, but I ended up hitting rock bottom for myself, because I was supposed to know how to do marketing. I was terrible at it. And that was the only thing I really had in in my identity was like, oh, I'm going to come back and grow this thing. And I was horrible at it, and I didn't know what to do. And I was kind of just, was in a very depressive state for a bit. And then I had an epiphany, and that was, wait, other people out there have done what I'm trying to do, but those people were not my university profs. My university profs, when I was in university, not one of my profs ever ran their own business. And so I thought, well, that's not the right person to learn from then. So I switched my perspective, and I just started compiling lists of like, who's the best in the world at doing what I'm trying to do. And I put lists together of small resorts that were successful, like high-end luxury resorts around the world. And I just started reaching out to the managers and owners and saying, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm stuck. I need help. Would you be willing to give me 5 minutes? And most of them said no, but a few of them, after me bugging them a number of times, finally said, listen, if we talk to you for 5 minutes, will you just stop bugging us? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I need. So managed to get on to a few calls with a few owners and managers, and they pointed me in a whole new direction that university really didn't open my eyes to with marketing. And I started, one of the key things, if you're listening to this podcast, that I didn't really delve into in university, but I think is key in marketing, is copywriting. Saying, hey, you got to figure out how to talk to the people that you're going after. Also, even within demographics, if you're going to market a business, especially if you're marketing a small business and you need to niche in that business, a demographic as a group it's not a good idea to go after a whole group of people. Let's say women 25 to 45, because there's so much of a stretch in what that could encompass. And so what we had to do was take a really, really hard look at who was the one person that we were going after. And so we really honed that into like, we're going after a mom. Her name is Val. She's 39 years old. She's got 2 kids that are, her kids were 6 and I should know this. We got it in the doc, but I think her kids are 6 and 8. And then all her hobbies, the things that she enjoys, like she enjoys spending time in the outdoors, but she also enjoys things like healthy cooking, and it goes on. And like the list goes on. You know what kind of car she drives. You know exactly where she lives, what city she lives in. You know,
well,
where
it sounds like you're very super targeted.
Yeah. And you go after that one person, and that makes a massive difference. That, to me, that's the foundation. You find out who's that one person you're going after, and then everything you do is centered around that person. And you just say, what are the things that person's going to be thinking? What are they going to be loving? What are they going to hate? And you leverage that, and it becomes so much easier to market to that person.
Well, it would make it easier because then you could see that person. If you can't visualize that person or see that person when they walk through the door, how are you supposed to know that that's your ideal client?
Yeah,
as soon as you figure
right.
out like exactly who they are, then you know where they hang out too. It's like, if they have no kids, they're probably not going to Toys R Us, for example.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly right. I mean, the fact that they have kids, for us, that's huge, because we can leverage the kids. Even like we today, as of today, some of our best marketing is actually leveraging the kids in a healthy way. It's not unhealthy, but we're saying we understand that you have kids, and here are all the things that we have in place for kids, which gives you as a mom a break, but also puts you in a position where you're a superhero to your kids. And obviously any parent would enjoy that. So, yeah.
So I have to jump in there because it's brilliant, because I just did an interview with 𝐂𝐈𝐊𝐄 as well, where you both are very highly thought out marketing strategists as well. So you don't go just for the ideal client, you go for the influencer to the ideal client. So you go for the kids. 𝐂 went for the wife of the husband that she wanted to draw in with her pasta.
Yeah.
So she's like, it's brilliant. It's brilliant altogether.
And if that's something, I mean, if you're listening to this, that's something that you definitely want to keep in mind is
who's influencing.
There's lots of case studies. Yeah. There's lots of case studies that say, if you can get into the good graces of the influencer, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate than if you're going after your actual target. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but it's the way it works. So, yeah.
And I'd just like to add, Erik didn't allude to it, but basically he still runs the resort as well. It's 𝐂𝐻𝐈𝐊𝐄 Cabins. It's in Okanagan. I'll put the Instagram down in the description there, so anybody can go check it out. Their Instagram is on fire, because Erik does that as well. He does the Instagram, and all the marketing, he's actually come up with a really cool concept for getting new bookings that I'm going to let him kind of take over what he's creating. And he's doing something that's really shifting the game of the tourism industry that not too many people are doing it. Would you say?
I don't think, actually, yeah, I would agree. I'd say there's not that many people out there that get this really well. And really, I mean, the things that we're doing are not necessarily new. What I am seeing, at least for now, and I don't want to say we're the only ones out there that are doing this, but we're the only ones that I've seen that are doing this, and I've really been searching for it. But we borrow from concepts that we learned from larger companies like Tesla does this really well. Apple does it well. Disney to some degree does this well. And so I was looking at big companies and how they did this. And then fortunately, the resort is that's not my full-time thing. The resort I'm tied to because it's a family business. And because of my background in marketing. So one thing I didn't mention is there's an evolution since putting that marketing in place at the resort, or starting to relearn marketing from people that were actually doing it well. We doubled our revenues within a year of actually changing around our marketing. And then the revenues continued to grow. What that does, that put me in a position to actually exit as being the full-time manager at the resort, which I was for a few years. I was full-time. I was the GM. And so, I replaced myself in that position, and that allowed me to go off and say, okay, what do I want to do next? And then I started another global company that grew fairly rapidly. And in the growth of that company, I think I had a few friends that started to notice that I was growing businesses, and they said, how are you doing that? And it started as literally just phone calls, just saying, hey, let me help you out. I'll help you out. And that evolved into a bit of a consulting position, and ended up in a partnership with a company in Australia, a marketing consulting company. That's how Steve and I met. And then,
I never introduced how we met.
Yeah. It did that for like 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and worked with hundreds and hundreds of businesses. And thousands of businesses personally. I personally worked with hundreds of businesses in a long duration. So a year or more. And that was a really good opportunity to watch not only what we were consulting them on to implement, but watching the fallout of that over the course of years, and how that worked out. And so I learned a lot in what worked well and what didn't work well. And so I took that the small stuff, the tactics, and I applied it to the big strategy that I was watching some of these big companies employ. And then I started applying that to our resort. So to walk you through the process, I'm not going to give you the full step by step, because I think for anybody that's on this call, most of them are not going to be in tourism, so they don't necessarily need what we coin it the guest pipeline. If you are in tourism and you want to check it out, you can go to tourismmanagementacademy.com, and
we'll put the link in the description.
Yeah, cool. And you can find the process there. But the concept basically says, how do you wow someone enough? You create this level of intrigue that they're not seeing from another company, to get them to just stop and pay attention to you. And that's marketing 101, is how do you put that hook out there to get someone to stop and pay attention to you?
Yes.
And the easy answer to this is, you have to know what they're thinking, and then you have to address the thing that they're thinking. And what people are thinking is, they're thinking about the next challenge that they've got on their plate. That's what people are thinking about. I mean, I wish that the world was all sunshine and butterflies and rainbows, and people were thinking about how good they had it. But unfortunately, those thoughts are usually more fleeting. Most of the time, we are actually focused on, what is the current problem that I've got in front of me, and how do I get over it? And so your job as the marketer is to figure out for your audience, so for us, Val, what's her problem? What's her current problem or challenge that she's got right now? And if we can actually describe her challenge on a deep level, that's better than actually describing a solution. So rather than saying, oh, we have a fantastic vacation for you, if I can describe the challenges that she's got with being overwhelmed and stressed out, and not knowing how to structure space in her life for herself, that is more effective marketing than just presenting a rainbow solution. And we use a little bit of both, but we definitely want to focus on the problem more than the solution, which most people are the other way around. And when that happens, then what we see is that we build trust. We build trust with her because she understands, oh, this is someone that understands what I'm going through. And if they understand what I'm going through, then they're more likely to understand what solution I need. And not only do we describe the problem, but then we describe the solution it's packaged in a new opportunity. So it's something that she hasn't seen before. And when you have that unique combination, it creates basically a situation where you're combining something that's valuable with something that's rare. And that is what drives your price up. And so not only are we drawing people in because we have something valuable and rare, and it's easy to bring people in, it actually allows us to increase prices at the same time as well. So our prices have gone up in percentage. They've gone up. Usually we're going up anywhere between 10 to 25% a year. And that means that our prices compared to like on the surface, something that you compare in a similar space, we're about double what anybody else in that space is, if not more actually. And we're trying to take it to a point where we are like 10 times that. Somebody that I've been looking at and I respect and model is Walt Disney. So Walt Disney, he basically took a theme park experience that was accepted and said, this is what a theme park is. And it wasn't something magical. And he said, I'm going to create something magical out of this experience, create a magical experience for a family. And that's allowed Disney to become a resort where they're that 10x more. And it's not just about the price, it's they're 10x more because the value is there, because the families value it. People don't pay what they don't see the value in or perceive more value than the money that they're actually allocating out for it. So that's what we're going for. We're saying, okay, yeah, we're double what everyone else is. So obviously there's a value component there, but I think we can be a lot better. We can really push ourselves to be so much better than that. And so in that context, in terms of like, what are we doing that's a little bit unique is we have that hook, we bring them in with that intrigue. We woo them with our personality. So it's another thing that I don't see, at least in the tourism industry, I don't see like other resorts or destinations really doing, is we bring a ton of personality into it. We try to make it fun and cheeky and funny in our communication through our website, through our social media. If you do go check out our social media, we're trying to like, you'll see some of the personality coming through there. And then when we've showed them that we understand their problem, and then they are attracted to a magnetic personality, which is not necessarily my personality, it's the personality of the brand, of the business. Then
it resonates with the idea of client.
Yeah. It like we want to create that resonation with them in order to establish a deep level of trust. And we have that deep level of trust, then we have earned the right to ask them deeper questions about their life. So we keep this cycle going. We ask them deeper questions about, hey, what is it that you really enjoy? What are the moments for you that are blissful moments? And then what are the things that you absolutely abhor, the things that you hate, the things that you cannot stand? And then what are the things that you cannot stand about family vacations? Because that's the business that we're in. And we get really vulnerable and we say, we want to know everything that you hate about family vacations, because there's lots of things to get annoyed at or challenged with or absolutely just hate about family vacations. And most resorts don't ask that question. They don't ask, what did you hate the most about your family vacation? I want to know that stuff. To me, that's the gold, because if I can take that as a baseline, as my foundational stuff, and say, if that's the worst of what we have and we can raise all of that, that gives me a much better foundation on the one side. And then if I can say, what's your biggest desire? And then that makes me push the ceiling of what's possible for us. It's about taking that information in. And then here's what we're doing that I don't see anyone else in the tourism space doing, but where you can see the parallels to, let's say, Tesla or Apple, is you take all that information in from the consumer base that trusts you, and you start creating with it. You start saying, oh, we could create new experience. In our case, it's new experiences. You can start creating new experiences, but we don't tell the user base what those experiences are as we're creating them. What we do is two things. One, we stopped allowing consumers to just buy whenever they want, or in our case, guests. We stopped allowing guests to just buy whenever they want or book whenever they want. We actually set a date, an annual date, and say, this is the date that we are going to do our season launch. And with our season launch date, what we do prior to that is we have a whole wait list that builds up. And to that wait list, because we've got this body of individuals that are sitting there all together as a community waiting to have us open that date, we give them hints around what it is that we're creating that season, but we don't tell them what it is. So we create a deep level of curiosity and a level of anticipation around the things that they are asking for. And we say, hey, we're kind of working on this thing. We might even do the Tesla thing. The Tesla gives like a snapshot of this is what it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse of like, this is what the truck might look like or the car might look like, but it's only like in the shadows kind of thing. So we'll do that. We might say, hey, we're working on a project. We're building something new for you guys. And we've got like one component of it, and we'll show them a picture of that. But we don't show them the whole thing. And so you do that throughout the year, and you create this building emotional anticipation with that body of people. And then sequentially, you have basically a launch. You have a launch that says, okay, 6 months out, we only give them a few pieces. 3 months out, we give them a few more. A month out, we give them a few more. A week out, like we're starting to put stuff out every day. And then like 2 days prior, like we're multiple times a day, we're talking about, hey, mark your calendars, the date's coming up, we're going to do the grand announcement. We basically do, I wish I had a stage. Maybe we should do that. But like Tesla or Apple has a stage that they do their grand reveal. We just do that in a digital version. We'll do multiple times throughout the day. We're doing Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, and emails. We'll do a mass email out. We're sending texts out to the guests, and we're saying, like, here are all the things that we worked on this year, and we go into the detail of it. And then as soon as we finish the list of the things, we reveal the things that we've worked on, that we've unveiled. Then we say, and now you can get it. It's open for bookings. Boom. And you open the floodgates, so to speak, right? And what that has allowed us to do, we did a really, really mini version of that 2 years ago. We did kind of a major version of it last year. And I think we could have done a lot better even than we did, but we did a major version of it last year. And that put us in a position where we were able to book out 90% of our entire season in a week.
Wow.
Which huge for us. I was going for 100%, so we weren't quite there. And it's like, oh, we're so close. We did end up booking out fully, but it took us a few more weeks to book that last 10%. And all that says to me is that we just need to keep working on building up that body of individuals that are waiting on us, our fan base, basically. Because what we found is that our guests love us. And one thing that really proved that is...
What's not to love, though?
Well, that's what we're trying for. I mean, there's so many things we can get better at, but one thing that really proved our guest loyalty was that through this whole COVID thing, another portion of my business is focused on tourism consulting. So I'm talking with a lot of tour companies, resorts, lodges, islands, whatever, you name it. And across the board, most people were down 80%. And for us, we had one cancellation, which I think speaks to like one out of hundreds and hundreds of bookings. Having one cancellation in the time of COVID, to me, is like, that's incredible. Now, what we have seen is that there are international guests that just can't come. So they're pushing reservations forward, but they're not canceling. Nobody's asking for a refund for the money back. They're just postponing it. And then what we're lucky about as well is that there is local travel allowed now. So a lot of the people that were booked with us and brought that booking forward, now obviously there's an open slot, but we have so much demand for those open slots that we're still full. Even if we get a cancellation right away, we can go to the wait list and say, hey, we've had an opening, and usually it fills within hours. That says that we have an extremely loyal guest base, which I'm like, we're ecstatic about. And that makes you want to serve them more. That makes you say, I want to take this to another level.
That was like action packed. Like, as you guys can tell, just listening to Erik, you get entranced and he just keeps going and you just keep listening. The amount of knowledge you just dropped in that short amount of time touched on like almost every touch point that a lot of people overlook. If you guys are listening to this and going through it, rewind. I'm going to rewind and watch this again and take notes as well. Because like, it was brilliant. Like all the different steps, just to recap kind of where you went over, is you really have to dial in your imaginary friend. who's that niche, like down to very targeted, what's the age, how many kids, all that fun stuff that Erik said. Because if you don't know that, then how are you supposed to create that deeper level of trust with that person and start that communication that you can, maybe they like humor, so then you throw humor into it.
Yeah.
But if maybe they're like super well put together and they don't like humor, like you need to know this stuff. And then you create that, and then you add value enough, create that experience that goes with it. That's why Walt Disney can add those price points a lot higher. Same with the resort, continuously grow, so they can charge more to it because people buy on experience. Also focus more on the pain points. Like, exactly. I'm like, wow, there was so much in that conversation that you just dove into. Another thing to look at is realizing you don't know it all. Being willing and vulnerable to ask for help. Like, that's huge. To me, I was like, brilliant. Just a touch point, we did work together for like 4 years now. We're pretty close friends. I didn't give the background about us, but this guy is a mentor to me. He's a good friend of mine. Everything about marketing, I've always leaned in to this fella. Brilliant, just absolutely brilliant every step of the way there. I love it, brother.
Well, I don't want to don't put me on a pedestal, because a lot of the things that we've come up with, that we've conceptualized, each one of those successes is founded in like 100 failures. So a lot of was trial and error along the way, and just figuring things out. But I think it's just a matter of circumstance. It wasn't because we were any smarter. It's just because I happened to be exposed to marketing in small business on a grand scale, and I happened to be involved in a family resort. And so all I did was take those two pieces that I knew and put them together, and that put something that I see as being innovative in that space. Is it innovative in marketing? No, it's not. But it is innovative in that space. And so it's working for us.
I'd add you're the architect of like emotions. Like, you really draw on emotional connections. And it's like, all these different types of tactics that a lot of marketers are like, hey, Facebook, Instagram, all that. But it doesn't matter if you're not resonating with that and drawing out emotions. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. So like, we use social media, and social media is a powerful tool because that's where people hang out. But one thing that I also really want to illustrate in this point is, when you're using social media, make sure you have good social media content, but don't keep your user base just there. So what I mean by that is, if your user base is on social media, you have to give them an incentive. And so for us, we give our social media user base, or really anybody, we have a gift. And so in our case, because we're going after a mom and we want that mom to be organized and have some semblance of planning around her life, we're like, okay, what would a mom want that is pretty organized, planned, wants things mapped out, and cares about her family? And so we put together a gift called the perfect vacation formula. And I found that by doing a lot of digging, finding out that there was a psychologist that went and did this research on what creates the perfect vacation. And so we create a PDF out of that, a checklist basically for how to create the perfect vacation based on what a psychologist came up with. And that's our gift that we give away. But what you do is, when someone comes to your social media channel, because they're attracted by the content that you have there, right away you want to give them that gift and say, in order to get that gift, you have to come over to so it's like saying, let's say, just pick a social media channel, Instagram is like a village in itself. But you say, if you want a really, really cool gift, you have to leave this village and come to my village over here. And the village over here that's your email, your contact list. I don't want to say email list, because email is not the most effective form of communication, in my opinion. There's text, messenger, WhatsApp, like there's a million ways to communicate with people. You want that contact information, but then you can control it, because Instagram's going to have an audience that, or a platform, I should say, that's going to change over time, as any social media platform will. And it gets harder and harder to actually access the people that you have built as a following on that platform.
Yeah.
And
kind
so
of
knowing that, yeah, exactly. And then you got to start paying for that audience. So knowing that ahead of time is a powerful thing, because then you can say right from the beginning, let's entice these people that are here to go to my village over here. And then this village, you have complete control over. No one's ever going to cut you off access from that village. So as much as we want
Brilliant.
good content on social media to draw them in, we need to have our own village over here. And that's the village that keeps growing and building. That's really where we actually concentrate on delivering emotional content that village wants, if that makes sense.
Oh, well, to me, because I've seen it a lot of times, and I teach the same thing. It's like, it's way better to build this village. You need a lead capturing attraction, a hook, something of value to that person, so then you can tap into them whenever you want. One thing I'll mention is the reason why I resonate with you so much is because you're so humble. You're like, the way you present yourself, I was drawn to you. We met down in Phoenix at a mastermind event. It was super cool. Right away, you're a banana guy. I was wearing a tie that you liked, and we just hit it off right away. One thing I'd like to add is one thing that I always looked up to you, and one of the concepts that you live your life, your business, and your relationships as well, which I think life and relationships are the same thing. But you believe in this concept, this method that you've taught me, and it has gave you amazing testimonials. It gives you amazing reviews. With your significant other, probably loves it as well. I'm alluding to it. It's called, I'll give the name. It's the +1 method.
Yeah.
And this was brilliant. When I learned this, it's changed my life. And I feel like it would change a lot of people's lives on this videos.
Yeah, we'll talk about that briefly, because I know we don't have a ton of time left, but the +1 is also something that I'm not going to take credit for. Absolutely not mine. I got the +1 method out of one of those calls I told you about with one of the other resort managers who was running arguably one of the top 10 resorts in the world at the time. Small boutique luxury destination, constantly winning accolades. His name's Justin King. He managed that resort for a while, had a lot of world acclaim with that, and took it from a resort that was doing well, but he took it to an absolute world-class level. And now he's recently moved on to a resort in Fiji called 𝐂𝐿𝐿, and he's doing the same thing there. And he's an incredible guy to know and work with. And I consider him to be a mentor of sorts as well. And he taught me this method called the +1. So it's not that complicated, but it's extremely powerful.
Oh yeah.
What the +1 method says is, there's a thing in tourism, especially in luxury tourism, called journey mapping. And so that's not a new concept within tourism. And what it says is, you have someone that finds out about you here, and then there's a journey that they go on, and then they leave you over here. And what you do in journey mapping is you take a look at that timeline and all the experiences, you literally mark all the experiences that they're going to have with you over that timeline, and say, here's the experience that they're going to have with me. Now, there's 3 ways that someone's going to perceive an experience as a guest, or if anybody's listening to this, maybe as a client. One is, it's going to be a neutral experience. A neutral experience is, oh, that's expected, and they don't even really notice it. Another possibility is that it's going to be a negative experience, which means that it's unexpected, but in a negative way. And that's obviously a direction that you don't want to go. Like, that's kind of where you might walk into a lobby and the whole place is just a mess. It's like disgusting, and nothing's been cleaned for years. And you walk into a lobby and you expect the lobby to be clean. That's just what you expect it to be, clean and well lit. And you're like, okay, that's what my expectation is. You walk in and it's an absolute disaster. It's unexpected negative. And you're like, get me the hell out of here. But the third opportunity here is that it's an unexpected positive. And if it's an unexpected positive, where you walk in and there's something that's surprising about that experience, that is where you live in the realm of luxury and luxury tourism and those kind of experiences. And so the +1 method, all it says is, if someone's going to be interacting with me from this point to this point, along that timeline, what are all the experiences that they're going to expect to have with me? And then what I'll do is I'll premeditate ahead of time. I'll take a look at that experience and I'll say, how do I take that experience and turn it into something that is an unexpected surprise? And that's what we call the +1. We +1 it. We add on to it that unexpected surprise at each step along the way. And to give you guys an example of this, where I understood the detail when Justin was talking about this, was saying, some things are going to be, let's say that the guests arrive, they come in, on a float plane. And when they arrive at the end of the dock, right away there at the dock, usually the expectation is, okay, we're coming off the dock and maybe someone's there to take the luggage in. But we're there and we're waiting there with drinks, and that's not necessarily the unexpected part. What's unexpected is that the entire staff of the resort know your name. So right away they'll say, without you having ever seen them, they've seen pictures of you, they've memorized your name, and they know exactly who you are. And you're like, oh, that's unexpected. Then you go to reception, and reception, they're going to give you a little welcome gift there that's unexpected. But then you go to your room, and even the level of detail here is incredible, where they said, even let's say the door handle that you reach for, when you reach for that door handle, is it a regular door handle that you'd see everywhere? Or is that door handle unexpected? Is it something that you wouldn't expect to see on that door, but is positive, but is really cool? So like they sourced unique door handles from some custom maker in Europe to be like, oh, that's unexpected. Then you open the door, and what's that first visual? That's a whole nother experience. They have a whole team that basically has done undercover work on their social media profiles to figure out what you enjoy. And there's personalized gifts on the bed for you, for each member of the family. Like, it's that kind of level of detail. And when Justin first asked me how many, he calls them touch points, or we call them touch points. So what are all the touch points in that experience? He asked me, how many touch points do you have with your guests at the resort? And I thought about it, and I was like, okay, well, if you mean interactions, we've got like, maybe there's the first email, and then there's a phone call, and then the confirmation booking email, and then they arrive. Maybe there's a reminder email in there somewhere, but maybe they arrive. Then there's a check-in with them after they've settled in, and then maybe like a midweek check-in and a goodbye. So like maybe 6 or 7 touch points. And he said, yeah, I thought that's what you'd say, because that's what a lot of tourism operators, that's the way they perceive it. He said, when we went through our like +1 mapping, we came up with 423 touch points. It's like, that's insane. But that's what makes them world-class, is the fact that they actually sat down, they looked at each one of those, and they said, how do we elevate this experience? And it's not necessarily like you have to put energy into each one of those. Sometimes, like for the door handle, for example, you do it once, and it's going to be an elevated experience for every guest that is new to that property. The trick is that you actually have to train your staff in this as well, so that there are new surprises, so guests want to return. So you don't want it all just built in, because once they've seen it once, then it's not a surprise anymore, and then it loses the magic. So you have to train your staff on this as well. And you have to explain to them, when a guest, let's say a guest asks for something, or there's an opportunity to interact with that guest, you want to see how you can take a request in. Let's say that a guest asks for, well, here's a real example from Justin from the Sapphire Fracient. When someone was ordering wine at the table, they got the wine, and then they commented, oh, this is some of the best wine we've ever had. Now what the waitress does is she says, oh, how do I +1 this opportunity to capitalize on this comment? And so what she did is she went, in her spare time, she looked up that wine so that she could print off an actual page for them, so that they wouldn't forget what the wine was. But then in addition to that, she went and she found out where that person lived, and all of the boutique wine stores in that area that sold that specific kind of wine. And she actually put a list of all the addresses and marked them on the map around where they live, and said, oh, I heard you really enjoyed this wine, and so I made this for you. Like, that is a prime example of +1. And what's unique within this as well, and is that you can use filters. So you use filters to say, what are the kinds of experiences that we want to deliver? So for us at our resort, for instance, we have 3 filters. And those are, when we create an experience and we want to create an experience, or we want to +1 an experience, we try and say, does this allow the family to connect with nature? Does it allow the family connect with each other? And is it fun? Is it playful? And we want it to hit all 3 of those things. If it doesn't hit all 3 of those things, we say, how can we make sure that it incorporates those 3 things? And the reason it's important to have those filters in place is because if you have staff, the staff are going to need those filters to give those experiences as well. Key story here, I'll try and keep this one really brief, is Justin gave me a story where there was a guy who mentioned he'd never been deep sea fishing. And he was from, I think he was from South America. but he came to the resort, wealthy guy, never been deep sea fishing. So the waitress went, and she knew one of the line cooks in the kitchen was an avid deep sea fisherman. And she said, hey, this guy's never been deep sea fishing. We don't offer that here at the resort. Would you be interested in taking him out personally and showing him all the best spots? And the line guy was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'll take him out. So the line guy goes out into the restaurant, asks this guy, would you like me to take you out deep sea ocean fishing? The guy says yes. He says, okay, great. Meet me outside the hotel tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and we'll go deep sea ocean fishing. So the next morning rolls around, they go on the excursion, they come back, and then Justin finds out that the ocean fishing, that part was great, but the guy drove this multi-billionaire, drove him from the hotel to his boat in his like 92 Pinto that was just like trashed inside, just loaded with garbage and stuff everywhere. And he's like, listen, you nailed the +1. You took them deep sea fishing. It was a custom experience. But one of their filters was luxury. It has to be a luxury all along the way. And that part obviously was not luxury. Now I don't know whether the billionaire enjoyed or did not enjoy that, but foreseeably, it's reflection on the resort and saying, you could have, if you asked us, you could have taken one of our like luxury transport vehicles. You could have taken the Range Rover or whatever. And you could have brought them there, but you took them in the 92 Pinto. And it's not reprimanding them. It's just saying, listen, if you're going to do this next time, make sure you hit the filters, and you're okay. You can do that, but you got to come and ask us like to borrow one of our vehicles to make sure that it hits all 3 of those filters, if that makes sense. So,
well, I think like just to dive in a little bit, can you share a little bit of a +1 for like a personal, like let's say if you have a relationship or you interact with somebody, what would be like an example somebody could do to wow a girl or a guy with a +1?
Well, I know
obviously you've been successful with that.
Yeah. So my current partner, I'm with her. Well, we're going to be starting a family and everything here together. So,
it's amazing.
But with her, I didn't know her. I didn't know her at all when we first met. We met at a country music festival, and I literally just saw her standing in line, and I was like, that girl's gorgeous, and I want to know her. And so, I mean, this kind of, this gets into like, how do you get a girl's number? But
it was brilliant.
I just walked up to her, and I kind of, to be honest, I made this up on the fly. I wasn't pre-thinking anything. But I walked up to her and I just said something along the lines of like, hey, I don't know, something corny. I was also drinking as well. So something corny about like, I just was attracted to you and I'm not leaving here without your number, something like that. And then she just gave me the coldest look, like, who do you think you are? So when Steve says I'm humble, realize that there are moments when I need to be checked. And she's good at doing that. But she just looked at me like, who do you think you are? And so I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. Give me 3 texts. Give me 3 texts. And if I haven't won you over in 3 texts, then you can ghost me. And so she's like, okay, let's see what you got. And that in itself is not a +1, but what was +1 was I didn't know at the time. I was like, I had no idea what I was going to text her. It's not like I had this pre-planned. I was just like, give me a shot and then I'll think about it later. And so the next day I was just like, okay, what are these? I got 3 texts. I've got a shot. Let me not screw this up. And so the next day I sent those 3 texts, and all it was the first text was, hey, this is that guy that you met at the music festival. And then I went on a little bit about like, just in case you forgot, because I know we were both drinking, like I was like a great looking guy. So I'm going to attach a picture just so you don't forget. And then what I did, and this is the +1, is the unexpected surprise, is I scoured the internet to find a picture of the absolute ugliest person that I could possibly find. And found that picture and posted it, just like a complete mess of a guy. Just like his teeth were missing. It was like half balding, patches everywhere. Just like, it was just bad. And then that was the second text. And then the third text was like, hey, I'd love to see you again. Like, do you have time to meet up anytime this week? Like, that was it. That was the 3 texts.
And then obviously it didn't work out.
Clearly, yeah. No, and now here we are, and we're getting married, having a family. Yeah. So, but along the way too, I mean, that was the initial +1. Along the way, especially in the beginning, each one of those interactions that I had, every time that I texted her, I always asked myself that question: how do I plus one this? How do I take what she's expecting I'm going to say and then add something cheeky or funny or some kind of surprise into it? And that's ultimately where we also are trying to do that with the resort as well, with those interactions, where we have those.
Well, I think like a big thing with, if there's single people on this, or if you're texting your spouse, like, hey, what's up? Or how's your day? Good. Like, you get these generic responses. And what do you do with those? How do you stand out? You add those plus ones. You add the cheekiness. You add funny. It's like, I had this girl text me. We were supposed to meet up at a coffee shop. I was like, just so you know, I have my mom on speed dial at number 1, and I'm ready to press it. And she's like, what? I was like, you could be a stalker. I don't know. Trying to kidnap me.
Yeah.
We're just playing. We're having fun with it. But having more fun, I think, is the biggest thing. Adding those plus ones. Now, obviously, you guys have watched like all the way to the end of this video. And I got to say thanks, Erik, for jumping on this. Now, people are going to definitely want to tap into you. So I'm going to leave all your social media handles below as well. Also, your website or your link to your tourism. Also, if you guys need to tap into this brilliant man, like, holy crap, he's humble. He won't say anything good about himself, but I'll say all the good things because I know I've been with him in a relationship with him for like 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you guys leave a comment, if you guys have a question, I didn't allude this to Erik, but I'm going to put him on the spot. If people leave comments for you, will you respond to them?
I'll try. I mean, obviously there's a timeline on that. If it comes in 5 years later, I'm definitely not going to promise that I'll know it's there, but yeah, definitely. Okay. In the next, like in the coming months, we can monitor it and see what's coming in.
Awesome, brother. Well, I'm just going to let you know about if anybody comments, and then you can ask them. If there's any comments for me, of course, I'll respond to them as well. Before we end the show, I want to do one thing, and I always end this the exact same way, is this whole show is about life and business hack show, right? What could you narrow it down? And I know you're constantly learning. So to come up with the one thing that you do on a daily basis and a weekly basis, what is your life and business hack that you need to do to keep yourself on track? Or has dramatically changed your life?
Well, I think that's a really tough question. The one thing, also knowing that I have a ton of flaws. Like, there are things that I wish I was like the one thing I was consistent with, consistency being one of them, that I'm always striving with. But I guess if I had to, and every individual is probably different with this, but I'd say for myself, the one thing that I'm good at and has remained a constant for me in my growth has just been learning, like reading a ton, always consistently saying, how can I be better at this thing? Reading and learning, and then putting that into action. Reading doesn't mean anything. It's saying what's like, you'll see so many of my books, probably too many of my books, you'll see bookmarks about like an eighth of the way into the book. And then a lot of them, I don't get that much further than that. And the reason for that is because I stop when I find something that's a nugget. I'm like, oh, that's a nugget. I don't read the rest of the book. I stop and I say, how do I put that into action right now? And so I'm literally looking at my bookshelf right now. Like, there's a lot of books here that I'm partway into, because until I've fully implemented that nugget, I don't continue reading the book. So that's one thing. Yeah, maybe that's one thing, which also gets me in trouble. That means that sometimes I've got too many things that I'm trying to implement that are on the go. But overall, I think it's led to just a lot of implementation, a lot of trial and error in that too. So that's brilliant. I didn't even know about that. Because sometimes you see a gold nugget, you acknowledge it, but you don't implement on it. I just want to recap exactly what you said there. Or they continue reading and they forget that golden nugget, which is huge, because then you got to reread the book and then you might skip over it again. So don't just read to read, unless that's what you're doing. Like you have I know this because we used to tour around. You have a fiction, a nonfiction, fiction. Yeah, I've got both. So
you have a fiction book to read, but then with the knowledgeable, the the nonfiction one, like you said there, you bookmark it. That's brilliant. And then you implement. And I got to give you kudos because you're definitely a big implementer. Like it hasn't always been that way, but you've been laser focused for the last, I say at least 3 years. Like you got squirrel syndrome, just like I do. We jump around, but this year alone, your main focus, I know this is a theme. You go by themes, not by New Year's resolutions, and yours is focus, and you have been laser focused. So to get you off your laser focus and to jump on the show, I just got to say, I appreciate you coming on and just sharing your amount of knowledge with everybody here. So thank you for that, Erik.
Well, man, I mean, I'm here because I appreciate you. Like, I know this is going to sound like just a bro love statement, but no, I mean, we've worked with each other a ton. Like, we've helped each other a ton. And I think I value that relationship for sure. So obviously I was happy to come on and spend some time with you. It's always a good time with you anyway. So why not?
Well, I think we always have fun, whether we're climbing, whether we're doing business or coming up with ideas. We always have a great time. So that is it, guys. That's a wrap. Again, if you want to tap into Erik, just let me know. Leave a comment. Go to his social medias. Reach out to this guy. Tap into this guy. This guy is brilliant when it comes to marketing. And I just want to say thank you all for staying all the way to the end. And Erik, would you like to do a cheeky comment to finish this one off?
You really put me on the spot with that. No.
Okay.
That's it. That's all you got.
That's no worries. Okay. And all good night. I'll see you guys on the next show. Okay.
Yeah. Cheers, man.